Welcome to Game Set Matchup, the podcast where we talk everything partnerships, the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Welcome to Game Set Matchup, the podcast where we discuss all things partnerships. I'm your host, Greg Watts, and please welcome our guest today, Rebecca Hawkes, Director of Events and Sales from the UK's oldest caterer, Searcys. Rebecca, hello and welcome.
Thank you for having me. It's lovely to be here.
It's wonderful to have you here. Happy New Year if it's not too late to say. But if I may, starting with an overview and introduction to yourself, can you tell our listeners a little bit more about who you are, your background, which is glittering, I might add, your current role, and a little bit more about Searcys?
Absolutely. So I've been working in events for about 17 years now, which makes me feel very old. But
you started when you were 14.
Of course.
Exactly.
I started working in hotels and worked my way through those before moving into contract catering. And I've worked for a number of the big contract caterers, including Harbour and Jones, Grayson's, and now I'm with Searcys. I've worked in a number of venues, kind of leading sales and events there. And my current role as Director of Sales and Events sees me overlooking the whole of the Searcys portfolio of venues, which is 28.
Wow.
And we sales diary manage 15 of those locations within that. So I have a big old team of around 65 sellers, and we work collectively to deliver a sales budget of about 41 million. So really exciting opportunity for us to work across the whole events market and really drive business into our venues. And I suppose that ties in nicely to what Searcys does. So Searcys is a hospitality business, and we work across several different areas, including the catering that we do in our venues. We also have several champagne bar and brasseries, for instance, the one in St Pancras, where we are working with customers who come in and dine with us every day. And we have some business and industry locations as well, where we're doing catering in offices. So we kind of have a really broad reach in terms of what we're overseeing, and that helps to make us unique in that we have the opportunity to speak both to businesses and people booking events, but also to end consumers who are coming to dine in our restaurants and champagne bars. Yes, this is a great company. As you said, it's got a lot of heritage behind it, and we really value those that ethos that kind of still sits with us today from when John Searcy first created it in 1847.
I mean, your proposition, your business is incredible. It's outstanding. I'm going to ask you two what I think are controversial questions, and you might roll your eyes, but I'm going to ask them. First question, which of your incredible venues is your favourite and why?
Really tough question, that question.
I know.
I'm going to have to go for one of our newest ones. That's Horizon 22. It's it's the highest event space in the UK. So the views from it are absolutely unparalleled. It's a great blank canvas space, big open windows. There's not a site in London you can't see from up there. And we've done some absolutely stunning events with our clients since we opened there.
Okay, and next question. And I have to ask you this, and all your existing clients and former clients can close their ears at this point. Which has been your favourite event that you've hosted at Searcys, and why?
So my favourite event was we did a event for ITV at the Theatre Royal Drury Lane, which is one of our partners, and it was a launch of all of their programming for the following year. So what we did for them was we pulled and themed everything around their shows. So we did food stations tied into some of the big ITV programs. So we had a Saturday night takeaway stand, we had a Mamma Mia stand, we did a huge dessert buffet and sweetie bags for everyone to take as they went home. And the whole thing really kind of lived and breathed ITV's programming, what they were doing. And I just love the ability to be so creative with it. They were kind of up for everything, and we really drove through with the creativity in terms of what we could do, from the theming of napkins right through, as I said, to the food and the food stations.
I mean, I must say, we've been partners with Dear Searcys for a number of years now, and the events that you put on for us are unparalleled. They are exquisite, from the Gherkin through to the IOD, through to the new event space in opposite the Treasury, the Barbican. I mean, everything that you touch really is remarkable. So I do want to say that, because it is quite rare to have a business, particularly in the event space, in my humble experience, who continually, not only for over 150 years, but just for a few years, maintain the level of quality through from the team through to the food and drink through to the event space. It's remarkable how you've done this, but I guess that's why you are the UK's oldest caterer, because that's just what you've been doing for a century and a half.
We do certainly really strive to be driving the standards through everything we do. So, we're doing a lot of work in the background around innovation and how we can be more innovative, our service academy, in order to drive the standards of our staff and the customer experience. So we do a lot of work in the background, really, to try and ensure that we are staying at the top of our game in terms of how we deliver and what the experience our customers have when they come into our venues and restaurants.
Well, just kind of on that, before we come on to the next question, and you haven't inspired me to ask you a few other questions, which I can only apologise for. But in terms of partnerships, again, you are the forebears and utter leaders when it comes to creating partnerships. I mean, one of the most beautiful partnerships, in my opinion, that you've created are the ones where you bring in and train homeless people to become chefs. Maybe you can mention a little bit about that, because I mean, that's just incredible.
Yeah, absolutely. So we work with a number of charities, namely the Beyond Food Foundation and Hotel School, who are bringing people back into work from perhaps being a bit down on their luck, homeless, of various different things. So we support them with the training, making sure that we create opportunities in our venues so that they can get work experience, they can get used to kind of coming back into work and sticking to certain shift patterns and that sort of thing. And what we find is that the people that we work with from these charities are really committed, because they really want to get back into work. They want to kind of turn their lives around. They're getting the support from the charity in terms of their home environment. We can give them the support they need in the workplace to give them the skills and the opportunities that they need. And it's just a wonderful partnership. It's so fulfilling for us to be able to say that we are managing to change people's lives and really kind of put them back on the right foot, and create that opportunity through the portfolio that we've got.
It really is. It's incredible. It really is. Well, that leads nicely on to our next scripted question, because I really want to ask, because I know that our listeners will be keen to hear. How have you seen Searcys' approach change since you've been there over the last 3.5, coming up to 4 years, when it comes to creating partnerships? And what would you say looks like or stands for a gold star partnership for Searcys?
So I think that partnerships have changed coming out of COVID. There's no two ways about it, especially in the hospitality business. It's been an incredibly difficult time over the last few years. We've had to really kind of dig deep and build and make sure that our partnerships are as strong as they can be, because we've had to rely on each other. I think none of our clients or venues were untouched over what happened over COVID. We all saw all business completely disappear. And what that meant was we really had to double down in our partnership to make sure that we came out the other side, quite frankly. And so what that's meant is that we really have developed these strong relationships with our venue clients, which have helped us to come out the other side. And that's been having really open communication and making sure that we are listening to each other in terms of what's happening. It's about supporting each other and being flexible where we can, and looking at kind of the bigger picture rather than perhaps the minutiae of what we're dealing with day to day. And I think a gold star partnership is all of those things. It's how we communicate with each other. It's about having a common goal and knowing what we're working towards. So what is the end outcome? And then there'll be layers of that. Of course, it's not just one outcome. There's lots of them, but it's about how we are working together to achieve that as a partnership. So both sides are putting something in towards the end result, and I think that's where we see that it work best.
I couldn't agree with that more. Having been a partner of Searcys again for a number of years now, our definition at Findr for what it's worth of a partnership is one where it's truly two-way, or if there's more than two parties, multi-way, where both or multiple parties are getting and receiving something from it, as opposed to perhaps a sale, which one might classify as an individual transaction where it's just one way, one time. But actually, a partnership is two-way, long-term, mutually beneficial. You're not trying to get a quick win out of it. It's truly understanding each other, understanding what each other wants, what each other's objectives are, and working together to mutually grow. And you do that just so naturally. I mean, and throughout your entire organization, one of the things that you just mentioned there was not kind of, I'm paraphrasing, but not just focusing on our own individual kind of siloed thing. You do all work with because there's thousands of Searcys team members. You do all work so collaboratively. And I remember actually a conversation just touching on COVID, which seems such a long time ago now. I remember the Bubbly show that you host, which, by the way, for our listeners is incredible, is where you host and showcase all of beautiful English sparkling wines, but also the most prestigious champagne houses across France and beyond, from Rénard, Dom Pérignon, all of them, Moet, Veuve Clicquot, all of them, and must go to. I think it's in June this year, if I remember correctly.
It's not. It's in March. I should
Oh,
do
God.
a shout out for it. Yes, it is taking place again this year at the end of March. Tickets
March.
are on sale now.
Thank you. Get your tickets now. Yes. So I remember at the Bubbly show a couple of years ago when it first launched, talking to your MD Paul, because he just arrived, I think, within a matter of weeks. It was either before or after the first UK lockdown, and I said, how was that for you? And he said, he took a big swig of champagne, I think, and said, challenging. So, but you did come out of it, and some tough decisions were made, but you come out of it arguably much stronger. But as an organization where events are the main thrust of your business, that must have been, to say challenging would be an understatement, but the decisions that you took, I mean, remarkable.
I mean, I think, everyone had to navigate through it in different ways, and it was difficult for everybody, but we have come out of it, stronger than ever, because we have been able, because when you go through something difficult with somebody, with your partner, then you do tend to come out stronger on the other side, because you've kind of been together in the worst of times.
That's a lovely analogy. A lovely analogy, actually. Again, before we come on to the next question, we run our startup Findr, and I have an appreciation for anyone that runs a startup or a business, or has like you, has a high pressure role. The impact on the partner and the family can often be quite challenging, and it's a lovely metaphor that as you're going through those challenging times in a partnership, whether it's personal or business, I completely agree with you. I think if you stick together and you communicate openly, you come out stronger. And I think, and it's true. And I think actually things like conflict often get a bad rep, because actually it's through conflict, I think, when the true stuff comes out about how people are feeling, what they want, and then you do become stronger, right?
Yeah, absolutely. As long as everyone's committed to finding a resolution, I think that's the most important part of it. When one part of the partnership doesn't want, it is kind of lost confidence or is not interested anymore, then obviously it's very difficult. But if everyone's committed to finding the right outcome, then I completely agree. I think conflict, work through it, and then come out the other side in a stronger position.
Yep. Well, that again leads nicely on to the next question, which is looking at partnerships, because they are, after all, the lifeblood of businesses. What's Rebecca's definition of a business partnership, and how do you go about creating them?
Well, I think it's kind of similar to what I've just been saying, that I think a business partnership is a partnership where both sides are communicating with each other, so we understand what we're working to get out of it, and both sides are putting something into it. So with our venue partners, we need to be both contributing. So we need to be delivering our end of the bargain, and we need them to be supporting us in the ways that we need to. And it differs in different relationships. Sometimes in venues, it's around what access we have to the building and how we can use it, and making sure we've got their support in the things that we need to do in order to be able to deliver our part. But I think that's what it comes down to. It's communication. It's about each party delivering what they say they will, and hopefully then celebrating the results together. And I do think the kind of celebration part of it is a really important part, because
Yes.
we work hard, we hopefully deliver what we say we will, and then we want to be able to recognise that and make sure that our teams recognise that.
As you say, Lee, starting off with any project, partnership, piece of work, and just outlining the objectives that both or multiple sides want to achieve, and then just tracking back against those and just being clear, with what we want to achieve out of this. And I think as Brits, sometimes we don't necessarily have the best reputation for being clear with what we want. And I think but I think that's starting to change, because I think people see the benefit of just being clear. But yeah, and I couldn't agree more. Celebrating success is so important, and that galvanizes the relationship even further between the partners, because you're celebrating what you've achieved together.
Agreed. And actually, I think you're right about articulating what success looks like, because
Mm.
I suppose that if we're both not aligned on what the successful outcome is, then we're definitely not working together. So it is about articulating what good looks like and knowing that that's what we're working towards.
I think some people, with the best of intentions, like to be, let's say, using an example from Searcys, we want to create this event, and we want it to be at the Barbican, we want to do this, this, and this. There can sometimes be a tendency from people who, have the right motivations of being really enthusiastic to say, right, yeah, brilliant, let's go ahead and do it, rather than just taking a moment to say, yes, that's fantastic, but let's just set aside a few minutes or however long it takes to put together what objectives do we want from organising this event at the Barbican, what outcomes do we want. And actually just taking that time, which doesn't take that long to plan, and then you're always continually going back to it to say, right, is this decision contributing to the delivery of this objective? And it doesn't take that long to do, but it just always results in, mostly results in a fantastic outcome, because everyone's always coordinated and clear.
Yeah, and there's some accountability, right? Because each party takes something different out of the plan. So, and then they've got accountability for delivering that part of it.
Yeah, I mean, and what motivates most people is absolutely, I agree with you, is accountability. Is when people have got some ownership and accountability for something, they've got, I hate the expression skin in the game, it's a horrible expression, but they feel, there is that sense of ownership. This is, I'm responsible for this, which strengthens the partnership even further. Well, and for all the budding partnerships people listening, what advice would you give to your younger self starting out? Perhaps the do's and the don'ts of partnership creation and development?
I think that a really important skill in terms of creating good partnerships is listening. And I think that my younger self probably was less good at that than now.
Why?
Well, because when you're young, you always want to just get on with it. Well,
Yeah.
I certainly did. Sorry, I'm not stereotyping everyone, but you want to just jump in and run before you can walk, basically.
Well, what I'm just saying. Me too, absolutely. Me too.
So, it's about taking a step back, taking a moment, understanding and clarifying the brief or whatever it is that we're discussing, to make sure that we fully understand what we're working towards. And then kind of working collaboratively to make a plan. So that's both sides inputting. That's not one person going away and trying to spearhead the whole thing. It's got to be collaborative. So listening and understanding the brief, and then really working together to agree what the objectives are, agree the outcome, and then start working towards it. So that being kind of last stage rather than the first stage, launching in head first and thinking about everything else later.
It's funny, isn't it? Because that really made me smile at the start. Because we've all, when we start off in our careers, we're all enthusiastic. We want to do the best job. We want to make the best impression. But it doesn't occur to us we can achieve all of that and more. But if we just allocate a few minutes at the start, just to pause, clarify, all of the above. But it comes from a good place. But I do see that in definitely younger members of the team, that they want to kind of go, and it comes from a really lovely place. But it just is. The better outcome is, as you say, just taking time, taking stock to pause, clarify, ask questions, and then that energy can then flow through. The energy doesn't need to be tapered. Just there's a bit at the beginning which helps to perhaps galvanize the energy.
But just make sure that if we set off at 1,000,000 miles an hour, it's in the right direction, not the wrong direction, which inevitably means better use of time all round.
That's such a lovely way of looking at it, that yeah, you're still going at a million. You can still, if you want to, go at a million miles an hour to reach the moon, but you're going in a straight line versus this kind of wiggly line, which takes so much more rocket fuel to get to. That's a really
Yeah,
lovely way to look
exactly.
at it. Mm. Well,
Um,
oh, sorry, I'm sorry, Rebecca. After you.
no, I was just going to say, you know, when it comes to kind of partnerships in terms of delivering events, and creating partnerships with some of our booking clients who kind of regularly book with us, that's really important for us to make sure that we are going in the one straight direction rather than kind of bouncing from side to side, to make sure that that relationship stays strong.
I hadn't, until you articulated it like that, I hadn't thought of it, that you can still go at the same pace, but you will expend a lot more energy and resources if you're going in wiggly lines, because you haven't clarified everything at the start.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, it's not as simple as that. It makes
No,
it very
no.
difficult, because often the people we're working with don't exactly know what they want. So, you know, there are challenges around that. And so we do have to flex depending on who we're working with, and how they are navigating what they want themselves. But certainly that's the ideal scenario.
I'm so pleased that you raised that, because that's something that I perhaps should have picked up on earlier, that it's all well and good us knowing what we want to set out and achieve, and making sure that our partners are clear with what they want as well. We find that at Findr so often, that businesses, they're not always clear what they want to do, and it sounds terrible. They kind of, I mean, that kind of gives them a really bad reputation. That's not necessarily the case, but getting people, I think British people in particular, to be really clear about what they want to achieve, why, what the objectives are, that in itself is a skill. So rather than setting off knowing our objectives, clarifying the partner's objectives is an imperative, right?
Agreed. Yeah, absolutely.
Yep. We're coming on to our penultimate question. So, having created partnerships for a large chunk of your career, what are your top tips when it comes to creating high-performing teams and winning cultures? And you have this very large team, and you're managing all these events. How do you create a winning culture and within that team?
So I mean, clearly what you want is everyone to be motivated. A motivated team is a successful team, because everybody wants to deliver the common outcome. So in my line of work, we tend to sit across two things. It's achieving budgets and kind of driving revenue, and it's planning events and delivering great experiences for our customers. And those are kind of the two pillars of what we work towards across my sort of division, so to speak. And you know, we have teams that are based on site, so they're not all together, they're kind of spread out, and it is difficult in terms of how we kind of keep everyone sort of motivated, not feeling that they're isolated in a pot, especially in some of our smaller teams. So it's really important, again, about communication. I think all good relationships come down to communication. So
Oh, yes.
how we're communicating with our teams, how we are telling them what's happening. I organise several socials throughout the year and get all of our sales and events people together, so they can network with each other, they can find out what's going on in different venues and really kind of speak to each other. And we reward success, you know.
Yes.
We have, as Searcys, we have our people awards, where we recognise some of our high performers across the whole of the business, and that's a real evening of celebration, which helps to really kind of motivate and inspire people to perform well. And I think it's about recognising you know, where praise should be given, and how we can really recognise those people that we know are doing a fabulous job. And it, you know, with such a big number of people, it can be difficult, but it's about understanding what's going on, and listening to what the teams are telling me in terms of what's going on in various venues.
Well, for what it's worth, you could run a masterclass in terms of how to create winning cultures and high performing teams, because everyone that I ever engage with or speak to at Searcys is just incredible, delightful, professional. The answer is yes, can do. Just what you're doing is just really remarkable, and in my humble opinion, industry leading. But again, that perhaps is reinforces what you've been going for over a century and a half. So clearly it's a winning model.
Thank you.
No, not at all. My pleasure. And it's all true. And to round us off, if I may, one last question. what does the future hold for businesses when it comes to creating partnerships with each other? And what, if anything, will you and Searcys be doing differently?
I think it's about continuing to work down this on a route that we're already in. So it's about being more collaborative with each other. It's about being more open about what the goals are, and not trying to kind of keep things or kind of hide around hidden expectations to a certain extent. So I think the more clear that we can be with each other about what we want to get out of it, and the more transparent the relationship is, the stronger it will be, and therefore the better it will be. I think that is what it comes down to. Transparency and communication are going to really help us to build strong relationships. In terms of how Searcys are going to do it, we work in partnership with our venues, but are there because we're selected by our venue. So that relationship is always slightly we're in a slightly subservient role, I suppose, is what I'm saying, in terms of how that relationship. So for us, it is really important that we are listening to our clients, that we are understanding what they want, and that we are meeting our needs. But also there is a bit around how we can challenge them and how we can try and support them in driving their business by challenging perhaps some of the ways they do things, and seeing whether or not we can add some benefit to them by making them tweak it slightly. So it's about how we kind of double down to have a really good, close relationship.
Well, as I've said a couple of times now, you've been doing what you've been doing for a century and a half, so the model clearly works. And I in my 3-4 years of partnering with Searcys, I've seen you innovate more and more and more, and that's just in a tiny period of time in the context of 150 plus years. So no, it's been such a pleasure and delight having you on the podcast here on Game Set Match Up. And I must say, Rebecca, thank you so much for everything. Some incredible advice and tips, as always, from you, I might add. Thank you ever so much for joining us on Game Set Match Up.
Thank you, Greg. Thanks for having me.
Absolute pleasure. All the best. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining this week's Game Set Matchup. Tune in to hear more about the need-to-knows and the do's and don'ts when it comes to creating successful business partnerships.